Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Gillian Berry, and this episode is going to be absolutely awesome. We have an incredible guest, somebody I've wanted to have on for a little while now. We have Ryan. He's on YouTube under the High Carb Regenerator, and he has an absolutely awesome story and just so many experiences that I feel like so many of you guys can relate to. He weighed over 400 pounds on the keto diet, which I think is very interesting. And he lost a lot of weight on raw veganism, I believe 130 pounds or so. We'll hear in a minute. And he says that on the raw vegan, that's when he feels the best. So we're going to get into everything and just learn so much in this video about Ryan's experience. And he has an awesome personality. So go subscribe to him. I will link his stuff below. Let's get right into it. Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good.
Good.
Where do you want me to start? Like from childhood, or do you want me to start from keto days?
Yeah, well, first I would love to start. I'm so fascinated by this keto thing, on how you say you got obese on keto and you say you weighed over 400 pounds on keto. So I would love to talk about what led you to keto, what happened there first.
What led me to keto was I actually did it before it was really called keto. I had always been kind of a bigger person, and I was weightlifting, but I was just getting really tired of how much I weighed. And I have kind of a trick knee, and my ankle is bad. So I'm like, I got to get this weight off. So I kind of adapted the Atkins, but I didn't really like, all the bacon and the grapefruit juice that he likes to drink for whatever reason. And so I just started, and I worked at a food distribution company. I was a fish cutter. And so basically, I got seafood for free. Everybody was jealous of that. All the expensive seafood I basically got for free, because restaurants only want certain cuts, and I would just take, the scraps and stuff like that. And so I was eating salmon, basically salmon, broccoli, and a little bit of sweet potato once in a while. Like you're supposed to refeed or something like that. And at first it worked great. I was losing weight like crazy. From 1999 into 2000 is when I started, and I lost a ton of weight. Matter of fact, I live basically on the lake, and I started in October, November of 1999, and maybe late May, early June of 2000. Me and my buddies went to the beach, and I took off my shirt, and they're like, what happened to you? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're like half of what you were the last time we seen you. And I said, I did, I'm doing this, ketogenesis, thing. It wasn't really called keto then. Matter of fact, the doctors at that point were warning me not to do it because it was bad for you. Mm-hmm. Now they tell you to do it. And it's, I'm like, cool. So I kept continuing to do it, but after a while, I started gaining weight on it. And then I met my now ex-wife, and her family was very well off, and they didn't cook. So we were always going out to restaurants and these gatherings and stuff like that. And I was keeping a keto as much as I possibly could, but I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we got divorced. And I started really just putting my time into hitting the weight. And I lost some weight. And I'm like, this isn't working. So I went even stricter on the keto. And I met my now ex-girlfriend. And so I moved out to Philly. And I kept doing, I was buying all the grass-fed, all the, the real expensive, at one point I was eating up to 40 pounds a week of, between the chicken, the beef, the salmon, the whey protein, the eggs, and the milk. And it was about 40 pounds a week. And I just kept on climbing up in weight. And I was starting to smell like vinegar. And I'm like, something's not right. Like my kidneys are having a hard time, or my liver or something. So I started going to see a general doctor, and they had me go see an endocrinologist. And he's like, dude, you're like more abundantly obese. And I didn't know what that meant until last year. It means irreversibly. And he really didn't want to help me at all. And my girlfriend at the time was almost vegan, vegetarian. And so I'm like, you know what? I've made fun of these people my entire life. If you're this hardcore meat eater, you make fun of these people eating this rabbit food. But I'm dying here. My kidneys were shutting down. I was smelling like vinegar at all hours of the day. I was actually waking up puking stomach acid, and I'm like,
Wow.
I gotta make a change. But unfortunately, the first thing that I did was do like one meal a day. So I would do these cheap juices that I like, just like kale and water, and I would, because I didn't have a juicer at that point,
And
so I
when
was
was this?
using
I'm just wondering, like, what year around was this?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just kept gaining, and then I would lose. Maybe around 2006, I think it was about 265 or so. But then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Once my liver and my kidneys couldn't handle it anymore, the weight was just piling on, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I
Wow.
started being in so much pain, and I started drinking for the first time in my life. I've never drank. I never even had alcohol until I was 30. No,
Wow.
29. 29. Because I saw, I'm Irish. I seen what it does to my family.
Hmm.
Like they live to that, drink as much as you can. Matter of fact, my uncle drinks so much vodka. I thought it was water. He fills a water bottle with vodka, and I'm like, I just don't want to go down that path. But it was got to the point where I was actually taking alcohol to work. I wasn't even taking lunch anymore. So I would fill
Wow.
my lunchbox with a beer, and I would just drink on work. And I'd come back from work, and I had to like eat a whole pack of Mentos not to smell like alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And I'm
and
sure
that's
you
that's
felt pretty depressed during all of that time
yeah,
period.
it
Yeah.
was it was pretty terrible, honestly.
Wow.
It was terrible. And my mom doesn't like mince her words. I came home for Christmas back here to Cleveland in 2010 for Christmas. I walk up the stairs and my mom's like, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I got obese." And she's like, "You got that right. You look terrible." And I'm like, man, this is the first words out of her mouth. So that's shortly after that, it turned into 2011, and around February, I really went into being. I think I was vegetarian for a month or two, and then I'm like, the dairy's got to go. And once I dropped the dairy, I looked like a different human.
Mm-hmm. Did it?
Actually, the dairy was worse than the meat was, by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dairy was same for me. Did it cause you like a lot of mucus and like bad skin and stuff like that, the dairy? Or what improvements did you see when
No,
you cut the dairy?
no, I just had a lot of fat and inflammation.
Yeah. And so when you were gaining, when you had like all the extra weight, what were you typically eating like in a day? Do you remember?
Yeah, I would start the day with like maybe 12 eggs, um,
Wow.
and maybe a little bit of bacon. I've never actually been a real big fan of bacon because to me it's just like a waste of calories because it goes down so quick, and I'm like, it just doesn't make, I'm just not going to bother with it. And then I would have like beef and broccoli, and then beef and broccoli, and then like beef. It was just like, my variation was, the only like maybe asparagus and beef, or maybe broccoli and chicken. There was very little variation, and most of my dressings were olive oil based dressings.
I've never done keto. So keto
It's
is
not worth it.
like high fat, high protein, low carb, right?
Yeah,
And to
see,
me,
that's the
like,
thing.
yeah.
If you ask three different people on keto, they all kind of have a different idea of what keto is. In my mind, it was high. It was high fat.
Hmm.
I was eating a lot of fatty meat, and that's why I wouldn't have too much chicken because it wasn't fatty enough. You try
Hmm.
to keep yourself in a ketosis state, which is terrible for you. If you really look at most people who have ketosis, they start going bald. They can't sleep. They can't, their skin gets all messed up. Their hormones, because your thyroid actually runs off how much carbohydrates you have in your system. So your thyroid tanks. They're drinking all the coffee, and I hate coffee. Like, I hate coffee. I don't like the smell. I don't like the look. I don't like the taste. I don't want it in my house. So I'm lucky with that. But then on the same end, I was making my own concoction of caffeine, aspirin, and ephedra. So, and then
Wow.
once America made ephedra illegal, I was importing it from Canada, or from China, because it's not illegal there. And I was making my own pills just to keep myself awake. And the crash off that is insane. It's
Hmm.
insane.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
it's terrible.
yeah.
I don't know why people go through this and they're like, "Oh, this is a really good idea." You can, because you can see, and the bags under your eyes that you have on keto is terrible. You
Yeah.
look terrible. It's like, I know the lighting in here is terrible right now, but I don't have any bags or anything under my eyes, but when I was on keto, I mean, I always had bags under my eyes. My eyes would be puffy.
Me too. There was a
You
period
can see it.
before I went raw where I'm a blood type O. So before I was like raw and like health conscious. I was trying to get more health conscious. I thought I did the blood type O diet, which is like a carnivore diet, like all meat, and I did not feel good. It was like my digestion was so much slower, and I had the big bags like you're talking about too. And
Yeah.
I think like the keto diet you did, like you know what, if somebody's out there watching you do the keto diet and it works for you, great. If that's what you want to do, great. It's not for me. Like I love the raw vegan diet. I'm more compassionate with the animals now and all that, but like I'm all for everyone doing what they want to do. It's not a judgmental channel at all. But to me, like the keto diet being high fat, high protein, like those are two of the hardest. That's like those are, fats and proteins are the hardest thing for the body to digest. So
And
like
it's acid.
yeah, and it's acidic. So it's no wonder like you ran into problems. So I'm wondering too, like when you transitioned to like raw veganism or whatever, more living foods from keto, did you also notice a difference in your anxiety or depression?
Hmm.
Like, did that lift at all? Like, do you notice differences like being raw versus when you were like eating like the harder to digest foods, like, or no?
It depends on what raw I've done. If I was doing a lot of juicing, I did have a lot of anxiety and depression. So I
Wow.
tend not to do it. Yeah, a lot of stuff was coming up. I think I had a lot of parasites and because I had stuff coming out, like
Hmm.
worms and stuff like that. So I think that some of that. So I just retransitioned into to fully raw. I've been mostly raw yesterday actually.
Hmm.
But I've got a juice now, but I'm not going to do any juice feasting or anything until I don't even know if I'm going to, honestly. It just I really didn't notice an energy difference between doing that and just say bananas.
Hmm.
So I really don't. I don't know that I'm going to do any juice that much juicing.
Yeah. So after the keto, when you went to raw right after keto or no? Like how
I
long were
went
you on raw, and like when you dropped all the weight, like what did you do to like get healthier and lose that weight?
when I first went raw was probably I transitioned into like vegetarian if you want to call it that in January 2011, February 2011, and in February I'm like I got to drop the dairy. So some point in February I dropped the dairy, and so from then on I was raw most of the time, unless because bananas take forever to ripe when you're in the cold. So unless I would
Hmm.
run into a situation where I just could not find produce that was ripe or something, then I would have like white rice or something like that. But so I'm gonna have to say, for from 2011 to about 2015, I was raw.
Wow. And then so what different, like how was your life then versus when you were not raw and you were like more keto based?
Well, I wasn't. I didn't have the stomach acid. I didn't have the joint pain. I didn't have. I never had issues with my hair, and I didn't have issues with my skin.
Hmm.
But the inflammation was completely gone. I mean, I wasn't. It's not completely. It's still. I'm still dealing with it. But like, it went away quite severely, and I didn't have any of the back pain anymore. If you got low back pain, chances are your kidneys are struggling,
Hmm.
and I didn't have any of the back pain anymore.
Good.
Trying to think of what else. My sleep habits, though, unfortunately, have never been great. So
Wow.
a matter of fact, when I was raw, they were probably at the worst. And another
Wow.
thing is I'm not overly emotional person. And when I was on raw, people told me that I turned into like a robot. Like my emotions were gone. So I've got to watch that this time and
Wow,
see why that
interesting. That's
happens.
definitely not the case for me. I definitely still experience all the polarity of emotions. I'm surprised by that. That's
Yeah, no,
interesting. I think it
it's
can take like so long for our bodies to detox too. Like
yeah,
especially like with how most of us have eaten. Like I ate a lot of meat and a lot of unhealthy stuff for decades. So I think it takes a long time, and I think a lot of people are like in a rush to see like results, or if there's like something negative, it's like super easy to sort of like link it to the diet, you know what I mean? So I'm
yeah,
wondering too, like when you did like those few years raw, where I know it's like, especially back then, not many people I think had heard of the diet even back then. I'm like, that's great.
no.
You like thought to do that back then. I wish I knew like back in 2012 or whatever. So how were the people around you? Like, were they supportive, or were they like, what are you doing, Ryan? Like, do you remember?
Uh, you know, We really didn't actually communicate all that much. Honestly, her and I are very introverted people. It's just kind of funny because I do a YouTube. I the people that we did know were very accepting of it. I think it's actually easier to do on the East Coast than it is. I'm like in the Midwest now, where meat and potatoes is like what's for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
On the East Coast, I mean, because I rode my bike most of the time, I was just kind of like that, the tree hugger type dude anyway. So I don't know. I really didn't notice a huge thing, but I did notice we got invited to a lot less stuff because, I don't know why. I'm like, just give me a watermelon. I'll eat a watermelon. I don't know why this is such a hard thing to do here. They're like, I just don't want, I don't want you influencing, and or something like that. I just don't want, I don't want to have to do, I don't want to have to be healthy is basically was what they were saying to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, we did get, and as far as like events for work and stuff, I've never been one to show to events for work anyways, because I'm not interested. Like, I'm here to work, I have no interest outside of that. But I would even I stopped going to them altogether because most of them are held at bars and stuff. I'm never going to drink alcohol again because I just became like an alcoholic, but I never got drunk. See, I don't get drunk. And so I can just keep drinking. And
Wow.
it was just,
I think
it
it's
was a
just,
hot mess.
I used to drink every day. I think it's just poisonous and toxic and like
Oh,
just
yeah.
doesn't lead to anything positive in my opinion.
No.
How did you drink for a number of years?
No, 6
No.
months. I was like,
Yeah.
nah, I cold turkeyed it too.
Well,
I threw everything away. I'm like, I don't even want to donate this to somebody because I don't want somebody doing this. I just broke the bottles. I mean, because we always, split our sides of the fridge because I've always eaten so much different than everybody else. And my entire side of the fridge was just nothing but alcohol. And I threw it out.
mm-hmm. So you did raw vegan for a few years, like back
Yep.
then. And then, so between then and now, you left raw veganism for a bit. So what were you doing up until recently? Up until
More of a combination of starch solution and raw.
so,
Actually, honestly, more as the years have gone on, as from 2015 to 2017, 2017, I was doing a lot of raw. When I moved back here, I stopped doing it really altogether. I was doing more starch solution. Obviously I can't handle it because I'm still 275. But interestingly enough, in 2016, I lost a ton of weight too. And I was doing more of that, the raw till 4. And so I would have raw food all day, and then I would just come home and eat whatever she made because she always makes vegan food.
mm-hmm.
And I was riding my bike like crazy, and I was probably down to maybe 235.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved back here, and I was working so many hours that I just kind of lost touch with it. And I started buying, and there's so many Whole Foods and Trader Joe's around here. Like I can go to, like there's like 3 or 4 within 20 minutes of me. And so I was just kind of stopping on the way home from work and getting like muffins and like potato chips because I was working so many hours and I was exhausted by the time I got home. I'm like, I just didn't care. And, you don't realize because it comes on slowly. So you don't realize just how overweight you're getting and how, actually fast it happens, but it doesn't feel like it's fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then I realized at
And
some
the food
point.
can be addictive, Sorry,
Oh,
go
it's
ahead.
addictive. I don't even want to say this if somebody's watching this in America. Like Trader Joe's has the best potato chips on the planet. I don't care what anybody says. And I was down in a bag a day, like a normal family size
I get
bag.
it. Like these things happen, and then you don't even realize when you fall off like that and you're eating things, you don't even realize the depth of like the difference in how you feel on those
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Like it happens slowly, and then you just
Because
get
it
in the
happens
habit.
slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wow. So you know what? I have to ask too. I think I might be the only person in the world who doesn't know, but what is the starch solution? I don't think I ever did that. And you're gonna
Are
have
you
to.
kidding me?
No, yeah, I actually don't know what the starch solution is. I never did it.
I don't have the book here. It's have you ever heard of John McDougall? Dr.
Yeah,
John
I have.
McDougall?
I've heard, and I've watched a few of his things, but it was way back when I first got raw. Like it was
So-
way back.
So the starch solution is basically you live on 90% starch and then 10% is fruits and vegetables, non-starchy vegetables.
So you're eating like a lot of potatoes and stuff.
Whatever starch is to you, whatever starch you like. I mean, he's against
Yeah.
white rice. Yeah, he's and he's actually against fruit. He says to have, I think, no more than 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day.
I love my
And
fruit.
I'm like, I just can't hack it.
No, I feel so great on fruit. Usually I eat fruit or green juice all through the morning, and that's when I feel my best, most productive, most happiest. So I'm wondering what has recently inspired you to recently transition back to raw, and how is that transition going?
Starting this channel, honestly, I realized from looking at myself and watching my own videos that the only time that I really effortlessly lost weight is on raw. And so, in my mind, that's when I felt the best. I guess we'll see. I'll see when I get there, how good I feel on it. I'm having to remember what I did back in the day. As far as I don't really like scheduling meals, but I'm trying to figure out remember what I ate. It was a lot of bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Because bananas are the easiest go-to for me. And the ripening process is kind of like a well-known thing. And there's a lot of fruits that I honestly just don't care for. Like grapes, cherries, peaches. I mean, a lot of this stuff I just don't. The higher water fruits I don't really care for, other than watermelon.
Wow. And you know what? On raw, I feel like it's pretty easy to lose weight if you want to lose weight. Like I
Yeah.
feel like some people do, on the other hand, though, they do find they gain weight on it. So that does happen. I hear that on my channel. Like now and then people do struggle and they say they gain weight. But I think in most cases you get down to your ideal weight. And also, you know what? I just want to say too, like it's not all about weight. You know what I mean? It's about like just
This
being
isn't
a,
about weight this time.
yeah, it's about like that's just like symbolism too of like what's going on the inside and how you feel on the inside. So to me, like I feel my best on raw. That's why I do it. Like it works for me. I get it if people try and it doesn't work for them, and I totally respect that. But like you've said too on your channel, right? Like you feel your best on raw. So like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, this isn't about. This is about weight loss, and it isn't about weight loss. There's something going on with my gut that has got to get healed. It's been going on since I was, single digits. I don't know what my sister has it too, but what her reaction to it is go hiking 20 miles a day, and mine is I can't really do that anyway. But I want to figure out what is it that's going on, and then
Yeah.
once you figure out that, then the weight will just come flying off.
I agree. And that's where I truly believe that everything starts is in our gut microbiome. I feel like it's not talked about enough. There's a great Rich Roll podcast on that I will link below. It's the best video I've ever seen. It's like a 2-hour compilation on the gut microbiome, and there's a number of doctors on there. And that's where I feel like everything started. That's where I had all my health problems years ago. And then after a couple years of like eating so many living foods, like they all went away. So I do truly think like everything I've researched and studied too, like the immune system and our health problems are so linked to the like strength of our gut microbiome. And
Yeah.
the best way to strengthen that is to eat like a diversity of plant foods, even if you're not all raw, just like eating all the different plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And like it'll just do a world of wonders for your health. So I'm excited too to follow along and like see what happens with your raw journey. So you just started yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing mostly raw, other
Yeah.
than dinner. But yeah, I just started fully yesterday. I'm just trying to remember what I did back in the day. I don't take notes or anything. I kind of one of the reasons I started this channel is so I have something to look back on. But honestly, I'm probably going to be mostly fruitarian. I'm not really into greens at
Mm-hmm.
all, and I'm not
Mm-mm.
into nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Avocado once in a while. I find that people who are very overweight coming into this don't do too well with fats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I've talked to a lot of people about this. I find, because there's this thing called insulin resistance. Do you know what that is?
Maybe explain just for the viewers in
Okay.
case.
So insulin resistance is basically your body it cannot handle carbs and fat at the same time. You go through the Randall cycle. And the Randall cycle is when you eat fat, it kind of coats the sugar receptor sites on your cells, and the sugar can't get past it. So then your pancreas keeps releasing insulin until the sugar actually gets in your cells.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's insulin in your bloodstream, you can't release fat. So
Mm-hmm.
when you can't release fat, then you keep, you basically essentially just store all the fats that you just ate, and it just keeps perpetuating itself. Where some
Mm-hmm.
people just don't have this; they're insulin sensitive, and they can combine the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you know what? I go through bouts where I eat a little bit of higher fat and then a little bit of lower fat, or sometimes that's why I like to do mono cleanses too, because I feel great when I just take breaks from fats completely. And I do like 3 days on only grapes or something like that now and then if I've been eating a lot of fats. It makes me feel great. But I think that's a great point, like about the fats for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have an interesting story about this. I kind of did a experiment unknowingly. When I was in Pennsylvania, I worked at this at the post office. I think it was the post office, and this guy's like, he came up to me and he's like, "Have you ever heard of this almond butter?" Because it wasn't really popular back when he asked me. I said, "Yeah, I'm not really into it, but." He's like, I can't find it anywhere. He's like, and he knew that I was, into this stuff. And, he's like, he figured I would know exactly where to find it, but I didn't. So I said, well, I can make it for you. I've got juicers with blank plates and I can just make it for you. And he was like, all right. So I was making this stuff and then it caught on and the other person wanted it. And now it's so readily available. I stopped doing this, but I was buying, there's this guy in California that makes small batch of almonds, and when it's small batch, you don't have to pasteurize it, so it was actually raw butter. I didn't eat the stuff, but I wanted to make a juice after I made this, so I just, instead of cleaning the juicer out, I just put the screen back in, and I started making a juice. The first piece of apple that went through that actually cleaned every single bit of fat off that, and it took the entire thing off. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I wish I had video of it.
Wow.
My whole juicer was coated with this fat, and that one piece of apple came through, and it cleaned the entire thing out.
Interesting.
I was like, wow, this is what it does to your body. But it's not going to do that if you cook it, because you get rid of all those enzymes that just ate all that fat on the way out.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was unknowing experiment basically, but yeah, that's what it does. And after I realized that, I'm like, yeah, I got to stop eating so much fat, because I think what people have happen when they get into raw is they start doing all these nut butters, the pates, the dehydrated breads, the pizzas,
dried foods, even getting carried away
dried
too many
foods,
dates and stuff like that.
yeah, and then it's just not you're not going to lose weight. I mean, actually, honestly, in my mind, it's almost worse for you than the standard American diet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would say possibly too, because they're so dehydrated and so hard to digest all those things, and you don't feel your best. So you see so many people that are like trying the diet and they're eating those things and eating a lot of dates, and they're like, why don't I feel as good as these people? But those things are so hard to digest on your body, right?
Yeah.
I noticed a huge difference. Even a couple weeks ago or last week, I had some kale chips. I don't ever eat like that. I had some kale chips and some other things, and I felt like instantly, I felt like not inflammation inside, but my body felt weaker, like that weaker feeling. And I never feel that way, and just way more dehydrated. And I needed so much water. So like, it's why I don't eat that stuff. It's why I just eat like the whole foods in their natural state is the most ideal. And I think, yeah, like live a little if you want to have some dehydrated stuff, like, or some treats now and then. Okay. But if you want to feel your best, like in my opinion, and what works for me is like the whole foods in their natural states, and make sure you're eating enough calories too.
I did struggle with that yesterday. I got to be perfectly honest. I did struggle with that yesterday because the fiber is so much different than cooked fiber, and it was filling me up. But then I actually couldn't sleep. Like usually when you can't sleep, you didn't eat enough that day, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna have to figure that out today. I'm gonna have to get more calories in.
Did you eat, like, I notice sometimes if I'm doing a cleanse, like, and I'm not eating any fats, I am like so wired and buzzing with like the electricity of like the fruits and stuff that I literally can't sleep. But I also feel like I barely need sleep. So if I don't fall asleep, it's okay.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, you do. I did find when I was raw that I didn't need anywhere near as much sleep. Like 6 hours was probably like my max.
Yeah. And day one, yesterday was technically, so you did all raw yesterday, the whole day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
raw.
day one, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And you did say something funny in the video I just watched. I like your personality. You said something funny about, I forget if it was in the video. I think it was about, or one of the comments, people giving you looks when you buy like the raw vegan stuff,
No.
right? And then I thought it was funny. You said like, and you just stare back at
Just
them until they stop looking. I love it. That was hilarious.
Well, it used to drive me nuts. They're like, because I buy in bulk because I eat in bulk, and I would buy a case or two of bananas, and they're like, "Oh, you got a monkey at home?" And I would just,
Yeah.
just stare at them until they walk away. At first, I was answering the questions because some of the rudest, most like incomprehensibly like rude people I've ever seen are raw vegans on YouTube. Like these are
Yeah,
some
it
of
can be
the
a pretty crazy. It can be like the diet world can be negative in general on YouTube.
oh
Everybody coming at you from different diets. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. It's just like, you
yeah.
know what? Do what you want to do. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
so anyway, so I was trying to be nice because I didn't want that, that like I don't know, not mantra, like
Hmm.
aura or whatever around raw vegans, all being assholes. But at some point, I'm just like, I don't feel like going every time I go to the grocery store. I don't feel like having an answer if I got a monkey at the house. Or like I would, because Whole Foods is, I don't know if they still do because I don't, the refrigerator isn't big enough. But they sell these 25-pound bags of loose carrots and it's like $19 and it's organic. So I
Hmm.
would buy these 25-pound bags of carrots and they're like, oh, you got a horse at home? I mean, it's just like, this is all you got? Sometimes I would say that too. It's like, it's all you got. Like you can't
No, I
come
deal with the
any more
same
clever
thing.
than that.
Sometimes when I'm buying groceries, they think I'm buying it for like a kid's school program. Like they think, oh, this is a school, like it'll just be like a big grocery haul, and they will literally think this is for like the kids for oh, you're buying food for the school. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I get that
Yeah.
all the time. I used to get like shy by it and like not like get like not own it, I guess. Like I've dealt because I buy coconuts. Sometimes I will buy coconuts by the case. I'll have like 15 coconuts on the
Yeah.
belt or whatever, and then like you cases of bananas, and people are
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Because you never
Yeah.
see this. I think they think you're like buying it to resell at another store. Like I used to be so shy about it. Now I'm just like, I don't care what you think because I feel so good, right? But I think
Yeah.
it's funny how you handle the comments and the people, and you just like go back at them and you're like, whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Everybody tells me that, I was thinking it, but you said it. I've just always been that way. It just comes out. But yeah, yeah, it drives you nuts. I'm just trying to eat healthy. I
Well,
forget
most
what
people don't do it. Most people that are seeing us buy all these things, like almost every person is like, "What's going on?" Like, no, most people don't do it. But I feel like it does inspire people too. Like, I notice at the grocery store because my cart's always filled with just so many fruits and vegetables. I notice like people look, and then like I think it, or like if I'm like buying all these grapes, and then I notice they are like thinking about the grapes now. Like, I think it inspires people in a way too.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was working at a furniture. You probably have seen me say this, but I was working at a furniture shop back in PA, and I was doing. It was kind of within a year of me turning raw. I think it was like a year. And this woman comes up to me, and she's like, and I had talked to this woman almost every day, but she comes up to me one day, and she's like, you lose like a pound a day. And I said, yeah, I think I am. And at that time I was still in the mid 300s. And I no, no scales actually will weigh you. Like most household scales stop at
Oh,
300. So I,
really?
I really didn't,
Oh, well,
huh?
I didn't know
Well,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Wow.
so I'm like, yeah, I think I am. And she's like, what are you eating? And then her husband joined. And so they're like both quizzing me. And I said, I'm just eating, I have a juice in the morning and I have bananas. And then I just have, like maybe a salad at night. And they're like, I couldn't do that. I said, what do you mean you couldn't do that? And then the husband's like, where do you get your protein from? I said, protein from? I said, you see how fat we both are. We don't need protein. I said, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I just couldn't eat that many bananas. I said, I'm not telling you to eat any, do what you want.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not trying to be fat anymore. If you want to be fat, go for it. It's just, it's just, and I have all these conversations, like, especially when I was working at the bank, people would, because I used to keep, you mentioned dates before, but if you get dates from the date people, like that's actually their name, they take them from the tree, put them in these little containers, and they ship them to you watered. They're not dehydrated at all. They're the best thing I've
Wow.
ever had in my life. And I used to keep an entire case of them at my work, and that would spark a lot of conversations. But most of the time, they're like, I couldn't do that. And I'm like, you couldn't eat a banana? You can't eat a date? Or I mean, what part about it is that terrible?
I hear
I
that
don't.
all
I
the
just
time too. People are like, I could never do that. But I never heard about raw till I started in 2016. And I don't know how I would react to maybe if somebody told me in 2010, I might think it's crazy too back then. But you start doing it and you're like, wow, I could do this. I feel so good, right? Like my energy is just like through the roof. And like once you like cleanse and do it properly, it's just like for me and then for a lot of other people I know, it's just incredible, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just don't understand. They see you losing all this weight, and they just they just don't want to do it. They would rather take their pills most of the time. I just don't. It's just not my mentality, I guess.
Yeah. And did you have pills or medication you were taking back then versus
No.
now, or no? Oh, that's good. That's great. Well, you're feeling good now, though. It's a big difference, right, from before when you were in the keto days.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got so tired of smelling like vinegar. Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, that was one of the biggest reasons for me looking elsewhere. I just got so. I mean, people would actually come up to me and they said, like, did you do something with vinegar or did you make a sausage? And I'm like, no, that's just me.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
just
the body odor thing is a big thing with different diets, I feel like. Like I feel like on raw, like I notice a huge difference in like next to no body odor and even the way your
oh
bowels
yeah.
are and like things like that. So, yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's
Well,
funny that you say that. I forgot to mention that. You don't have body odor on raw, but even cooked vegan, you do.
mhm.
Well, at
Mhm.
least
I
I do.
know.
Yeah, I can't
Me
speak for
too.
everybody,
No, me too.
but yeah.
And I want to ask how were, if it's not too personal of a question, how were your, people ask this on my channel, how were your bowel movements? I'm curious on keto, if you remember, versus on raw. Like, do you remember
Um,
if it was like really backed up on
it was,
keto?
it was, it was. I don't know how crap you want me to get, but it was terrible. Like I wouldn't go from like Tuesday through like Saturday, and then I would have massive from like Sunday to like Tuesday, and then it would back up again. I'm like, I guess it just got to the point where the body just didn't care anymore. It didn't want to try to digest this stuff, and it pushed everything out.
So it would, you would be backed up, like you wouldn't
I
have
would be
any
backed
bowel
up for like
movements for like,
4 days.
see, wow. Back when
I,
I ate like the standard American diet, if I was backed up and I didn't have like one bowel movement a day, I would be so moody. I remember if that like back then. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Unbelievable. That is so toxic to like be backed up
oh,
like
it's
that.
so toxic.
I actually,
I,
and people don't realize, they don't realize, you know?
the thing is, I thought back to my, I think it was biology days, and the teacher's like, yeah, it should take like 100 and some hours to digest, and so I just put two and two together, like I'm like, oh, this is just normal, this is taking 100 and some hours to digest, and then once it does, and everything comes out, and then the cycle starts all over again. Yeah, and that was my thought. That's what I was thinking it was happening, because you hear about people being backed up all the time, so you just kind of think it's normal, but it's really not.
It's not normal at all. And then that's the thing with me on raw. I go 2 to 4 times a day. And I really believe that's why, like, I feel so much happier. And like your gut is so connected to your mind and your moods and stuff like that too. And when I used to be backed up, I used to be moody. And I actually have a friend right now. He's going through this. So his bowels were doing about what you're doing, like going, like sometimes be backed up for like 3, 4 days. So
Yeah.
he's like, what's going on? He's just experiencing so many symptoms. So he's going to try raw for 30 days. I'm going to feature it on the channel. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I'm at least doing it for the 30 days. I'll see where I'm going. I think I might get completely back to it, but I mean, I got to see, because I did go. I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody away, but I did go through some pretty gnarly detoxes, to the
Yeah.
point where I didn't know if it was worth keep doing, or maybe come off, like, maybe one meal have. I love my white rice. I got like 200 pounds in the kitchen just in case, because there's been two times already this year that there was no produce whatsoever at any grocery store that you went to. I
Wow.
mean, we're talking bare nothing on them shelves, like 2 times. So if that happens, I mean, what are you going to do? So at least I got my rice, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna, I'm not trying to like say it's a terrible thing. I have gone through some pretty serious detoxes
Yeah.
where, in retrospect, I wonder if it would have been better to ease into it, because I do everything cold turkey. That's just how I am. I did, like if I'm going to go raw, I just do it one day and I just keep going with it. But I do wonder once in a while, like maybe if add in like 2 or 3 meals like a week.
Mm-hmm. That's what one girl I know does. She was experiencing some heavy detox symptoms when she went all raw. Sophie, she was on my channel. She's a coach now, and she had to scale back a bit and include some things. Some, like, she does one meal a week. It was too intense for her. Even the doctor was like a health conscious doctor and said, like, you need to slow down the detox. I think especially if you're doing really low fat, maybe you'll experience more detox. Like when I
I think
transitioned
that's what
raw,
it
I
is.
was still eating like walnuts and avocados and like and I felt great, and I didn't experience any detox, but maybe that was why, because there was still the fats there and stuff like that. I don't know.
You've been slender though, right?
Yeah, so I never like suffered from like weight problems at all. Like I
Yeah.
was always, but I weigh more as raw vegan than I weighed before. Like I was sometimes almost like too skinny. I think like, before being raw vegan, I was really, really sometimes really skinny. People would think like I had an eating disorder, which fortunately I never dealt with eating disorders, but sometimes people would think that because just my body was so skinny. But now I feel like I'm more healthier weight. I'm happy with my weight, but I've never dealt with that. No, but I
Well,
dealt
the
with a
only
lot of
reason I
health
say
problems. Yeah,
what, yeah,
I
the
dealt with a
only
lot of
reason
health
I
problems.
say
Go
the,
ahead.
the only reason I say that is because I find that people who are skinny can get away with a lot more of the fat than the people who tend to gain weight.
Hmm.
It's just what I've found. Maybe you're, but then the thing is if you're like 405 pounds like I was, and if you're eating a little bit of fat, it's so much better than what you
Hmm.
were coming off of, that you're going to lose weight anyway, but it might not be as fast. And you might not want to lose it as fast either, because dealing with loose skin is no joke. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I actually, because Arnold over at Arnold's Way in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, if anybody's in Philly, go to Arnold's Way in Lansdale. He's amazing. He's actually the one that helped me with this whole thing. He's a raw vegan. He almost died in one day, and he just turned raw vegan in one day. And he's the one that helped me with this. He told me to eat like 6,500 calories a day, and
Wow.
it was rough, but I did it, and the weight was just, I mean. And then I went to him a couple months after, and he's like, "You gotta add in some avocados." He's like, "You're losing too fast." And
Wow.
so I added in avocado a night to
Makes
slow it down.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, and I'm so excited to see what happens and to follow along with your journey and with the viewers. So, with everybody watching, I can't recommend enough to go subscribe, go follow Ryan. He has so many great videos. He posts so much content, and it'll just be really interesting to follow along with your raw vegan journey. And if it works for you this time, see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that, and I'm really grateful to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on and for sharing your story. I feel like a lot of viewers can relate, and I've appreciated it so much. And I would love to have you back in the future. And again, everybody go subscribe. We will see exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Bye.